We start this debate with a big temptation to engage one another on peripheral battles and imagined battles, rather than focusing on the task at hand. And we have chosen not to succumb to that temptation, Honorable President, and not to play to the gallery, but opted to engage on real important issues.
Honorable Mantashe, can you take your seat? What is the point of order, Honorable Ndlozi?
Speaker, I wanted to check if it's parliamentary for Honorable Mantashe to put the wrong button in the wrong...
Order, Honorable members. Order. Honorable Ndlozi, can you please
I'm protecting the dignity of GNU now.
Honorable Ndlozi. Honorable Ndlozi. Honorable members, can we take ourselves seriously and each other seriously too? This is an important debate, and I don't think it is an honor for each one of us to actually cast aspersion or to actually impugn on another person's character. Honorable Mantashe, you can please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi, for helping me out. Thank you. So the real challenge facing us in this House is to put our heads together and find lasting solutions to massive problems facing our country. Shadow boxing is not a helpful approach to that. It's better to be in the ring and battle on real issues. It is in this context that I will focus on one apex priority that the Government of National Unity has announced by the President. I'm focusing on the inclusive economic growth and employment creation. That is quite important. It's a burning crisis for the country. The National Development Plan 2030 enjoins us to eliminate poverty, reduce inequality, and make it a priority for all of us to create employment opportunity for the people of South Africa. It is strong primary sectors that will ensure that there is sustainable secondary and tertiary development in the economy. So those primary sectors are mining, agriculture, and petroleum. Those are primary sectors of the economy. And therefore, in our view, we need to deal with them, address them decisively to set a foundation for secondary and tertiary economic development in the country. And then we must also respond to the outcry of our people that our jobs are being taken by foreign nationals. It's a cry. It is not getting the right interpretation. The reality of the matter is, it is the bottom end of the labor market that needs our attention. For example, we support the visa regime as envisaged to attract skills and investment into the economy. We support that fully. But we say it should be complemented by us paying attention to the fact that at the lower end of the market, we're not paying attention. And that is where the employment crisis is. In other words, we make the point that it is not xenophobic to say, please protect sectors that do not want complicated skills. That will be your hospitality. It will be your hospitality, it will be your farm work, it will be your construction. And I'm sure people who took time to monitor the George crisis and disaster, you will know that it exposed our laxity in dealing with construction sector as a sector. And the attractiveness of employers is that those sectors is easy to invite anybody at substandard wage rates. And it is this government that has a responsibility to deal with that issue. Let's deal with foreign-funded NGOs that block exploration of gas and oil, because that is blocking economic development. And we must confront it and deal with it and allow that That doesn't mean we are not serious about responsible mining and exploration. Do that, but don't block development, because employment is a function of economic growth and development. So we're making that submission. The justice system must also look into that reality of a view to find solution to these cases up in court, because they go to court. NI, which moved to Cote d'Ivoire, was taken to court 67 times. It packed their suitcases and went to Cote d'Ivoire and made huge discoveries of oil in Cote d'Ivoire. Let's deal with that. So the justice system must accelerate the process. We must therefore accept unreservedly the need to responsible mining and petroleum exploration. That is conscious preserving the environment while accelerating development. Beneficiation is an issue that has been in our vocabulary for many years, and it is time for it to be implemented practically. Beneficiation, sometimes a nice word, but its meaning is value addition. We must not export raw commodities as they are. We must add value here and not export jobs. But there are interventions that must be done. There are interventions that must be done there. The first one is that for beneficiation to happen, we must have reliable, efficient, and affordable electricity supply. Because if you don't have that, beneficiation will collapse. Number two, we should actually have an incentive scheme for beneficiation. Beneficiation is an economic activity in the value chain of mining, and it should be treated as a business. Therefore, incentives are important for that section. That may include granting tax holidays to attract beginning of that sector. It can also mean taxing exports to discourage export of raw commodities. And therefore, we must engage the business to introduce a particular electricity dispensation. For example, there's nothing wrong in developing a commodity price-linked electricity tariffs. We did have it in this country. We can look into those alternatives.
Mr. President, you indeed spoke like a badly wounded buffalo yesterday. You spoke like a given-up soul. Nothing inspirational came from that tired speech yesterday. You didn't speak like a person who declined electoral support with 17% to less than 50%. How on earth do you repeat a SONA speech that made you lose elections? You were saying to South Africans yesterday, in so many ways, that you learned nothing out of these historic elections, to an extent that you want to continue business as usual. We grew up being told that some of you were collaborators, but we gave you some benefits of the doubt. It was said in this House that you personally wrote a letter to the apartheid police accusing your fellow comrades of planting communist ideas in your head, and we refused to believe that story at that time. It now makes sense that despite the apartheid regime being so oppressive against all freedom fighters, you peacefully and uninterruptedly attended university, and you were given your first job by the ambassadors of apartheid, capitalism, and colonialism. Without a hassle, you bought yourself a first car and a house with the assistance of the Urban Foundation, which was anchored by the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers, while your comrades were sleeping under trees in exile and languishing in jails. We asked ourselves as to how did you form a union of mine workers without being a mine worker? Can't you know? You were the conveyor belt between the workers and the super exploitative mining capitalists in South Africa after the Oppenheimers and Anglo-American had concluded that the mine workers must be organized. Our elders in the struggle have made allegations before in this House that throughout the struggle against apartheid, you were insulated from any form of arrest and harassment by the apartheid system. Towards the end of apartheid, you shockingly placed yourself at the center of the negotiation for the end of apartheid. No one knows how you arrived to be at the center of the negotiations of our liberation. It now explains as to why so many compromises and capitulations were made, leading to a situation where economic
Malema,
power
can you
remained
take
in
a
the
seat?
hands of the white
Honourable
minority.
Malema, can you take a seat? There's an order by...
On a point of order, House Chair, we are going to forgive you because you are new. You don't know the rules of this parliament. When a point of order is raised, you must specify the rule and the specific sentence or a phrase that you say this is a violation of the rules of the National Assembly. What the Commander-in-Chief is doing is to give a political characterization of a phenomenon. That is a point of debate. It's not casting aspersions. How else do we deal with political questions without giving context to what got to transpire to where we are now? Where else do we say that except here in this parliament? You can't suppress political debate because of your misinterpretation and misunderstanding of the rules. Please allow the speech to finish. And then when we later on go to Rules Committee, we're going to illustrate to you with proper evidence when we're inducting you that the rules do not say what you are saying that you must withdraw. Please be patient with this process. We are going to understand them when time progresses. Currently, your application is incorrect.
Thank you, Honourable Shivambu. Honourable members, Rule 53 makes provision that if a member makes personal reflection on the member's integrity that are equally offensive or damaging, which cannot be necessarily substantiated. Therefore, that should be done by a way of a motion so that a member can substantiate what he's been saying. At this point in time, Honourable Malema has cast aspersion against the President, which needs to be substantiated accordingly, and therefore the order remains sustainable.
When it was clear President Mandela is not going to make you the first deputy president of the democratically elected South African government in 1994, you threw tantrums and even boycotted his inauguration. The same President Mandela you asked us to celebrate yesterday, you missed the historic moment to do so in 1994 because of personal aggrandizement. Like many people in South Africa, I stood here in this house and said we will give you the benefit of the doubt, believing that the allegations against you of being a collaborator might not be true. I will tell why I'm giving you this personal account. It is necessitated by your activities, actions, and decisions over the past weeks since the electoral defeat of the former liberation movement, which demonstrated clearly that in the battle against neo-apartheid and neo-colonialism, you chose the side of the oppressor like you did in the past, yet pretending to be with us, the oppressed people. Why will the apartheid beneficiaries say that among all black political leaders, you are the only one they can work with to an extent that you are called a better black with a better accent, and you believe them over us? They call us criminals who must be arrested, whether we have committed any crime or not, because we disagree with them politically, and you believe them over us. Your own brothers and sisters who come from Shawela and Venda with you are today looked down because of you. You have committed to be a representative of the oppressor. The white capitalist establishment is willing to turn a blind eye to even serious allegations of wrongdoing against you, because through you, they believe that they will perpetuate the exploitation of the oppressed class and reverse the gains of the political freedom attained in 1994. It doesn't matter what you say, but we want to state categorically that the coalition between the Democratic Alliance and the former liberation movement is a sellout position typical of collaborators who sacrifice and compromise the struggle against apartheid and colonialism. White minority arrogance has increased under your term of office. You should have seen them yesterday when you were speaking. It was like you are a true Tabaneka Koko Helen Zille. You boldly take these counter-revolutionary and reactionary decisions because you know you have a full protection of white capitalist establishment. All the things you said yesterday are meaningless because they are exactly what you said in the 6th State of the Nation addresses you have given since you became president in 2018. Now, you said nothing about international relations while we are living in a world defined by shifting global balance of forces. The West, under the guidance and protection of the United States of America, is agitating for a world war, which will be defined by recolonization of the African continent and the global South. And you never said anything about that. There is an ongoing aggressive war by apartheid Israel over Palestine, and you never said anything about that because your coalition partners are all fanatics of a Zionist apartheid Israel. Shame on you that you said nothing about the genocide committed right in front of us because Ulabaposo. You chose glory over the dying children and women of Palestine because you are scared to offend your coalition partners. President Mandela, a close friend of President Arafat, who you said we must celebrate yesterday, should be turning in his grave. The trade embargo against Cuba is still intact, and despite the fact that Cuba played a role in the struggle against apartheid, you never said anything about that. There is instability in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South African soldiers are dying in that war, and you never said anything about that. There is a real threat of instability in the entire SADC region, and you never said anything about that. There is loss of life in South Sudan, but you had nothing to say about that. The BRICS Forum has been joined by additional countries such as Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, Iran, and United Arab Emirates, and you never said anything about how South Africa should maximize these strategic relations to grow the economy. We are not in the business of talk shows. We are in an agenda to realize through economic emancipation of our people, and no matter what it takes, we will never associate with the collaborators and the sell-out agenda of the establishment. Nonyana paku ibia lile tiye are chushike maru a utla bosile motho wa o ba le matric wo asankang aba subjected to a peer review comes here and calls us VBS looters. I understand the mind of a rat will not comprehend that is actually sitting with VBS looters themselves in the government of national unity. The same matriculant is a beneficiary of the loot of 20 billion of Steinhoff that was invested by public investment, by PIC. No amount of nonsensical threats of arrest can silence us. Not even death can silence us, because Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela's voice has multiplied. Ours is a generational mission. We shall overcome. Victory is certain. We want to tell you now, your days are numbered. Thank you very much.